Otto Wagner was one of the most important figures in the history of modern architecture. He lived through a time when architecture was moving away from copying historical styles and toward creating new forms for a new era. He played a major role in the Vienna Secession movement, which was a group of artists and architects who wanted to break away from the academic traditions that were dominating design at the time. The Vienna Secession aimed to create a completely new visual language for the modern age, one that responded to contemporary life instead of repeating the past. Wagner's career took place during a period of dramatic change in Europe, and especially in Vienna. First, industrialization. Materials like steel, iron, and glass were becoming widely available, allowing architects to design lighter, taller, and more open structures. This gave Wagner the tools to move beyond the heavy masonry of earlier centuries. Second, urbanization was reshaping Vienna. The city was growing quickly, and new infrastructure was urgently needed. Wagner understood that modern architecture needed to address these real, everyday urban needs. Finally, there was a cultural shift. People were becoming dissatisfied with historicism. Wagner stepped right into this moment with an approach that embraced modern materials, modern needs, and a modern aesthetic. Wagner's design thinking was grounded in the belief that architecture must evolve with society. His famous statement, "Something impractical cannot be beautiful," sums up his philosophy. Beauty should emerge naturally from a building's usefulness, efficiency, and structural honesty. Wagner also believed in material honesty. If a building used steel or glass, those materials should be shown and celebrated, not hidden behind false decoration. Wagner's architecture wasn't just about how something looked, it was about how it worked for the people using it and how it fit into the modern city. Wagner played a pivotal role in shaping the movement's architectural direction in Vienna. The secession movement was a deliberate revolt against the traditional, historical styles that dominated 19th century European architecture and, at the time, Vienna. Wagner wanted to break from the past, advocating for a new style that was free from historical imitation and instead reflected the needs and materials of the modern era. In functionality, for Wagner, ornamentation was considered dishonest if it didn't contribute to the function. Truth to materials means that materials should be used honestly and visibly. For urban responsibility, Wagner didn't see architecture as isolated objects. He saw it as part of a larger urban system. And modern expression means that architecture must represent the present and not mimic the past. He embraced new technologies and aesthetics that reflected the industrial age. Wagner's design approach was a fusion of classical training and modern innovation. He used their clarity but stripped away the ornamental excess that no longer served a purpose. He embraced clean geometries and balanced compositions, letting forms speak through proportion rather than decoration. At the same time, he would integrate new technologies like iron, glass, and reinforced concrete. To Wagner, infrastructure was not a separate utilitarian category. It was part of architecture. At the beginning of the 20th century, Vienna needed a metropolitan rail that could unify a rapidly modernizing city and fast-growing populace. Wagner, serving as advisor to the Transport Commission and lead designer for lines, bridges, and stations, treated this as an opportunity to prove that a modern, engineered urban system could also be architecture. Karlsplatz, one of the system's most well-known nodes, became his showpiece. Two identical pavilions flanking the tracks, announcing the network to the city with a striking modern face. The construction combined an exposed iron framework with marble cladding, a system that was both light and modular. Rather than concealing the mechanics of assembly, Wagner allowed rivets, joints, and steel profiles to remain visible, turning them into part of the visual language. These panels carried stylized floral motifs that marked entrances and emphasized the structural junctions. Karlsplatz Station is one of Otto Wagner's most recognizable works. It's where his architectural philosophy most prominently expresses itself. Here it can be condensed into three main points. First, modern needs made visible. Around 1900, Vienna needed a modern rail system for its growing population. The Karlsplatz Station was designed for that purpose. It was not made to look like a palace or a church, but as a new type of building, an entrance to public transport. Inside, everything is planned to work smoothly. Wagner showed here that usefulness and efficiency must shape how a building looks. On truth to materials, Wagner argued that architects should use materials honestly, without covering them up to look like something else. At Karlsplatz, the structure is a steel frame, and instead of hiding it behind heavy stone or concrete, Wagner attached thin marble panels to the outside. The joints and rivets that hold it together are not hidden and are instead highlighted with gold. This way, the building clearly shows how it was built and what it's made of. And on function first, ornament second, Wagner didn't think decoration should disappear, but he believed it had to make sense and fit the structure. At Karlsplatz, the flower patterns and geometric designs are carefully placed within the panels created by the steel frame. The colors and the curved roof also help make the building stand out and guide people to the entrances. The decoration is used to support the building's purpose, rather than to cover it with unnecessary details. Wagner's philosophy can be summarized by his famous motto, "Necessity is the sole mistress of art." He argued that a building's form should be determined by its function. He believed that only practical things could be beautiful, and extraneous ornament was unmodern and inefficient. He embraced new materials like iron, steel, glass, and aluminum. His designs often showcased the underlying structure and materials, a break from tradition. The Vienna Secession was a statement of independence. Founded in 1897, it broke away from Vienna's conservative traditions embracing modern styles and uniting all the arts into the idea of the total work of art. Its leaders, Klimt, Moser, Hoffmann, and Wagner, redefined what it meant to create for their own time. And so their legacy continues to shape modern art and architecture, reminding us that, truly, to every age it's art, to art it's freedom. To summarize, Wagner's architecture can be understood through 5 key principles. Time-bound. He believed architecture must evolve with society's changing needs. Function-driven. For Wagner, practicality was the foundation of beauty. If a building didn't serve its purpose well, it couldn't truly be considered beautiful. Material honesty. He embraced new materials like steel, glass, and aluminum, and used them in ways that highlighted their strengths instead of hiding them. Integration of art and engineering. Wagner believed architecture was not only about solving engineering problems, but also about creating cultural meaning and visual harmony. Urban responsibility. He saw architecture as part of a bigger system. A building should serve the city, improve public life, and contribute to the urban landscape both in function and in beauty. These principles allowed Wagner to bridge the gap between tradition and modernity, making him a pioneer of European modern architecture, whose influence is still felt today.